Welcome to the RC Community Sticker Project, brought to you by Fast Freddy RC. In today's video, we're doing a shout out to John Foster RC. Lovely man, you gotta get on his cool wall. And great build videos. So for step 26, attaching the steering servo. Well, we've got to grab these pieces here off the C parts tree, and then you can see that we've got a bunch of the MA3 screws going into washers, and then we've got this ball connector going into the servo saver. Now what's interesting is in most cases they have you put the ball connector into the servo saver before you install it onto the servo. I'm not sure why they didn't put that in the previous step so that you're not putting strain on the servo gear itself. I mean, I'll hold it like we did before where we've got the thumb on it, which will hold it tight, but that I think is a mistake. That should have been put on before it is attached, before the servo saver is attached to the servo. But anyway, there's all of our bits and pieces. There's the two pieces we need to put onto this, and then you can see that once we've installed it, we still have to attach it with two screws, and we've got to put the arm on. So this is where I might just take a look at the steering, make sure that it's all set before I start clicking anything into place. So I'll set this up and let's put this together. So first off, let's get this ball connector onto the servo saver. So I'm going to put that inside of the box wrench. I find that the easiest way to do it. We know that it's going to go on this side, but I am going to flip this over so that I can have my thumb on this, and then I can level the box wrench out, which makes it super easy to get a sense of the positioning of this and make sure that it's going in pretty straight, which it is. So if I just turn this on and just keep turning, we'll get it in all the way. See, I didn't put enough pressure on that and I messed up the positioning. The servo saver moved and I didn't want it to. But that's okay. I'll have to reconnect it to the receiver to make sure that it's back to neutral. See, and again, I don't know, like the ball connector's on, but I don't know why that wasn't done in the previous step. So if you're watching this before doing this step, I would suggest putting this ball connector onto the servo saver before you screw it down. Because now we don't know where that neutral position is. I know I can move it back to, you know, more or less where it was, sort of, but I don't know for sure. So I think I might just hook this up again and make sure that it's in neutral before we do any more. So as you can see, if I turn everything on again, you're going to see this go back to neutral, which is where we want it. So let's see what happens. Oh, right. Well, I guess before we do that, I'm going to have to plug it in, aren't I? So here we go. Let's try this again. So now that everything is plugged in, I'm going to click the switch and we should have this brought back to neutral. There we go. So there is the neutral position. So again, that ball connector really needs to be put on beforehand. It just should. Anyways, that's great. Perfect. I will get back to putting all the bits on before we install it on the chassis. So now if you take the C3 part, which you can see looks like that, that is going to attach to that side. So we're going to need to grab a screw and one of our washers. Just like that. Put that through into there, and then we're going to end up having to screw that in. So I'll grab the screwdriver And I'm just gonna sort of almost do like a temporary fit, just to make sure that everything is seated properly. So same again on this side, make sure that it is going into the hole correctly. Yes. Which looks like it's going to be okay. So let's just make sure I can put that in okay. And again, I'm not going to do a complete fit because I kind of want it loose so that I can see how it's going to fit on the chassis first before I screw this completely down. So on the other side, same idea. We're going to grab our servo. The piece is going to sit like this on the back side, just like that. So same again, we'll grab one of our screws and the washer, grab that, and you can see that this is more closed off. This is like the bigger holes. It's the bigger holes that you want facing towards the servo saber. And again, just going to more or less get it started more than anything else. And same again with this one. And we'll stick that in there. Same again. So it more or less is going to look like that when it's finished. Now again, I'm not going to tighten these up yet because we're going to do a test and make sure that this actually sits nice on the chassis itself. So we'll do that now. So if we grab the chassis, and you can see that this, the wire cable, is coming out at the front. And you can see that there's these two spots right here for attachment. Well, technically, when you put this on, the one is going on exactly over the screw hole. This one, that black piece, was designed to be wide enough that depending on where it fit or how big your servo was, because all servos are different, there'd be enough room to put in the second screw. So this to me is fitting just fine. So I'm going to screw these down solid and then we'll put this on. I won't bother putting that on camera because we just need to tighten this up. So I'll tighten those up and then we'll attach the servo to the chassis. So this is all now screwed down nice and tight. So let's screw this onto the chassis. So what we need to do is turn this over so that it's facing that direction. It's going to be screwed in that way. So let's put in the first screw. So we're going to grab a washer, grab the screw. Come on. Get that washer all the way down. And let's screw that in. And I can pretty much go most of the way because the opening on the other side is there, so we don't have to worry about it not being in the right place. And the same thing with the other side. You can see there the hole is right pretty much in the middle of all this. So we'll stick that in there. And there we go. I'll just do a final check on both sides. Yep. So there is our servo in place. So that's how it looks from the bottom. And so with the servo there, you can see here that they want you to put the steering arm and snap it onto the ball connector, which was this piece right here. Now the real question will be, do we do that or don't we? And what I mean is, let's take a look at the steering setup here. Obviously, well, in fact, we're gonna have to do this upside down anyway. If we look at the arms, we've got one here, we've got one here, and then that's going to sit more or less like that. So if we attach this to the ball connector there, those arms are not right here. They're not straight enough. So I'm gonna need to make an adjustment for this. So I either shorten this, but I think I'll end up having to move these arms around. So it's really going to be a matter of trying to figure out what's the best way to keep these wheels straight. So these arms can be adjusted because we can spin them to determine where the best placement for that should be. And you can see it's mostly okay there, but once you put that on, it's going to shift it a little bit. So I actually think what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap this one on because it is pretty much correct. But I'll play with the two arms to get this level. So I'll do that and then we'll come back and take another look. Okay, so I've popped all of these steering arms onto the steering buckles. So everything is now attached. Now, the only thing is I adjusted this one slightly. Not by much, and it may be hard to see on camera, but I pulled this in just a touch because once this is all ready to go and everything's connected, I can use the trims to make final adjustments on the steering, but this one seemed a little bit farther out. So I turned this buckle a couple of turns before snapping it onto the front hub. So I'm happy with that. I think it'll be okay. So we can move on to the next step. Now originally I was suggesting that I would move on and we do 27 and move on and do four-wheel steering later, but what I've realized is it's not long before we start putting body mount posts in, and I don't want to be doing that while I'm working on the servo. So we are actually going to flip over to the four-wheel steering step 4, and we're going to put together the steering servo and go through the steering arms, etc., and basically finish off the four-wheel steering setup. So I will set this up and we're going to start working on step 4 of the four-wheel steering.